Hi, I'm Kathy Fettke, co-CEO of Real Wealth Network and host of The Real Wealth Show. And I want to give you some tips on how you can not only protect yourself as a landlord, but also protect other people. And that's even more important. I'm going to give you a really horrible example of how it went terribly wrong in Oakland, California, just last month, where I'm sure you heard about the big warehouse fire where 36 young people were killed because they could not get out. There were no fire exits. There were bars on the window, and it's just a horrible, tragic story that could have totally been prevented. First of all, nobody should have been living there. It was uninhabitable. Now the lawsuits are coming in, and the property owner, the person who leased out the property, the city of Oakland, the person putting on the party that night, the party promoter, and even the owner of the building next door who supplied the electrical for that party, they're all named in this lawsuit, and they all could be facing up to 36 counts of murder or manslaughter. It's just tragic, not to mention all the lives lost and the families who have to suffer through this, when it all could have been prevented. So as investors, let's take a look at what went wrong. And obviously the big thing that went wrong is that the building was not up to code and it wasn't permitted. And it seems obvious when you look at it from this perspective, but I can tell you there's a lot of people who do the same thing just on a smaller scale. They might buy a property and say, hey, I could rent out the garage, just fix it up a little. It doesn't have to be permitted. And all is fine unless something goes wrong. And if something goes wrong and your tenant gets hurt, or in this case even dies, well, you're to blame for that because it wasn't a legal space. So just make sure your properties are up to code. Go check on them. If you don't know what code is, make sure that you hire someone who does. And make sure your buildings are permitted. I know it can be a difficult and expensive process in some areas, but the alternative is far more expensive. Another thing that this landlord did wrong, but I really don't think it would have helped in this situation, is she put the property in her personal name. And so the day after the fire, everybody knew who the landlord was, and everybody was able to look up and see what other assets that they had. And all the other homes and properties that she owned were also in her personal name. So, of course, she's going to lose all that to the lawsuit. And again, these are minor things because 36 people died. But here she's built up all these assets over many years, and she's going to lose them all because of this. So it's just very sad, again, for everybody involved. Finally, she says that, or claims that she didn't know about it and that it wasn't rented out. But there may be evidence of a lease agreement, in which case, of course, she'd be in the wrong. But either way, it doesn't matter, because if you own a property, you need to know what's going on inside, and it would be very obvious and easy to figure out if somebody's living there. So she should have known. And so again, all of this could have been avoided if a property manager had been involved. So this would be my last point, is if you don't know the local laws and rules and regulations, don't try to manage property on your own. Get a property manager. It's only around 8%, maybe 10% of collected rents, but it will help you avoid this kind of liability in the future, because a property manager would have never allowed any of this to happen. So I hope this is helpful to you. And again, my sympathies to the families and friends of the people, all of the people involved in this situation. Again, I'm Kathy Fettke, CEO of Real Wealth Network, host of The Real Wealth Show. Thanks for joining me.